Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Hidden Disabilities series on BrainCast. In this new series, we aim to talk to people with hidden disabilities, discussing their experiences with the healthcare and the education system and what they think is needed from society to support them. My name is Emily, and on this episode, I'm really pleased to have Ray join us to discuss functional neurological disorder. So, hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm great. So would you mind just telling us a little bit about you and about your life and about your work, maybe?
Yeah, my name's Ray. I'm 35. I struggle with and having FND. It's been quite a while now that I've had it. I was only diagnosed in 2017, but I've had symptoms since 2006, which started off with the seizures. Initially, they thought it was originally down to depression, panic attacks, that kind of thing. So it was just kind of fobbed off. But then going through history with my mum, at 2 days old, I was actually rushed back into hospital having quite a number of seizures a day.
Oh, wow.
So I've been used to having, my body's been used to having seizures since birth, but I can't physically remember anything from, say, 11 downwards. I can look at pictures and know that's myself, and I can watch videos knowing that that was me, but actually gathering recollection of those memories isn't possible for me. So then the seizures started again in 2006, and it took to 2017 to actually get a full-on diagnosis of non-epileptic attack disorder, which is obviously a part of the FND.
Yeah.
So they obviously referred me to the right people, and I wouldn't say the full-on explanation of what FND is and what functional seizures were. I was given a leaflet and a website and told to go and read John Stone's book. Which wasn't helpful, but at the time I kind of wasn't phased. I'd got a diagnosis. For me, it was I'd been given what I needed to know, and I could kind of get on with life. Literally a month after my diagnosis, I found out I was pregnant anyway, so I kind of forgot about me and concentrated on what was coming. Obviously, a little isn't just an easy job to do. Having a baby is quite hard work within itself. So I won't lie, I did bury my head in the sand. I didn't want to think what I'd got. I just thought, you know what, I've dealt with it this long, I can still deal with it. But in turn, I was wrong. I didn't do my research. I didn't look into it. So therefore, I got quite a big shock when I started deteriorating and my health started going downhill. But even though I kind of lost myself, I almost found myself again, because I realised that things hadn't just kind of stopped. There was still a world out there, and it was thanks to social media that I actually kind of got myself back out there, because I realized there are other people like me that had FND, that had the functional seizures, and I wasn't on my. So it's kind of got me to the point now where I'm feeling more confident in myself. I'm still learning to manage my FND and losing my mobility and my seizures, but now having more people around me, like with my group FND and Us, and me volunteering for FND Action, I've met others who, if I can't really help myself, then I can at least help them, or especially with those that are newly diagnosed, I can kind of say to them, look, don't just let it go. Don't just forget about it. Look at what you've got. Have a look, like get into groups, meet other people, and really involve yourself with our community, the FND community, because they will be there to support you one hell of a way on the journey that you face. So
yeah, that's honestly so important. And as someone who's been slightly more newly diagnosed, it's people like you that have really made it possible to be comfortable and find myself through the diagnosis as well. You mentioned the social media and the blog. Well, no, you didn't mention the blog, but I wanted to talk quickly about the blog. So when did you start that blog? Was that something you started before you were diagnosed or after?
That was only started at the start of last year in February. It will be on February the 1st. It will be officially a year old.
Oh, wow.
This is what I mean, from where, I'll be honest, where before I was diagnosed, I only had my own personal social media. I didn't really upload much, so it's just kind of as and when for friends and family. And it wasn't until I kind of thought, you know what, no, I will put my story out there. I will put my information and my personal experiences out there. And in turn, I met people. So it was kind of like, do you know what? All this help and this knowledge that I've kind of learned, I kind of want to make something out of it. And one thing that I was taught was brain dumping, which was, and it often helps me with brain fog, is in the case of if I can't think of one thing clearly, I'll kind of sit there and just jot everything down. I'll dump it out, and then I can think, yeah, that's really it, and kind of think straight for a few minutes. So this is what my blog was originally for. It was just for me to put everything down for my fashion, my art, FND, and all my other health disorders. It was just a place for me to put it down into words. And it wasn't until I actually started publishing it and letting other people read it that I realised actually I'm enjoying this, and have really launched my creative side to come back out. So that's how it kind of evolved a bit more into my unwired world, where I literally just post about mobility aids, clothing, FND, IBD, PTSD, mental health, anything that I can relate to that I think it will help anyone else will be written about. And it's really.
You were talking about the clothing bit and the bringing out your creative side. So I think on the blog you mentioned the fact that you're into like music and dancing and fashion in general. So how do you think those have, you know, impacted you, and like FND in general? How has that impacted?
So you'll probably understand when I say FND really changes everything. It's not just minor change. It literally impacts everything around you, from relationships to social to school, learning, work, everything. For me, I think it was the case of I can still really express who I am with my fashion, my music, my blog, my art, everything. It's kind of, I'm not locked into this body that I feel is broken, doesn't work, and is in my term unwired. But where is music? And I asked this on my blog, and a lot of people said, chronically ill and not chronically ill, said music is their way of escaping, of able to let go of that negative feeling, and it releases that positive one. Like one thing I said was most people have their heartbreak song, their happy song, their sad song, their I'm going to get up and go and get it song. And for me, if I'm having a bad day, music especially will help lift me up. My iPad and pencil, where I do most of my digital tool work, that is my kind of freedom to just let go. And along with the group and the blog and with all my social medias, I know that I can kind of express me, and I know other people understand it as well, because they know how it kind of feels to be caged in a broken, ill body, if that makes sense. So it's like you're not just your disorder or illness or whatever. There's more to us than just being chronically ill. This is it.
And
it's kind of a stereotype. You've probably heard it, but you don't look sick, and all those other comments that kind of, well, we're sick, yes, we're disabled, yes, we have disorders that limit us, but it doesn't mean we're not here. It doesn't mean we're not human. We still, I think we still have a right to actually be able to live how we want to live. So why can't people themselves in the way they want to, whether it's the way they dress, music, art, it doesn't matter. Everyone's free to be themselves.
I mean, specifically, especially on your support group on Facebook, the amount of posts of people posting their artwork and saying, I've had the energy today to do this, and it's been really freeing and stuff like that. And it's just, in my opinion, because I can't draw or anything, but I do the music side of it for me personally. But the amount of people who just feel like, I don't know what it is, just the ability to do something else through art and music, it's so good and so nice to see.
It's nice to know that it's not limiting people, they're not letting it stop them, and it's kind of, it's refreshing. So it puts a smile on my face, especially when I see them going, go on, that's cool, bro.
So can you tell us a little bit about functional neurological disorder, or FND, a bit about just in general and a bit personally about what you experience?
Well, a lot of people have actually messaged me or inboxed me on Facebook or Instagram asking me what's the best way to describe it. And one of them was, the easiest way I can explain it was, imagine you're on a PC or a computer. You've got unlimited tabs open. They're all freezing. There's music coming from somewhere, and it's just like, what's going on? It will freeze, black out, shut down, reboot, and restart. That is pretty much how you can explain FND. Is the case of, is your body has too much to deal with, whether it's triggers, stress, work, home life, personal life. It's all rolled into one, and your body just kind of goes, actually, things aren't right, things are messed up, and in turn, movement doesn't work, speech is messed up, memories, parts are forgotten, whether you get it back or not, or whether you don't. It can literally affect any part of your body. I know people that have bowel problems, thank you to FND, swallowing problems. The list is endless. It's I mean, for me, my first symptoms were seizures. I did have other symptoms, but I generally thought it was all down to just what a seizure can do. It wasn't. And in turn, I now have speech issues, mobility issues. I can't walk without crutches. I struggle completely. I can be limited to a wheelchair some days, can't even move other days. You're lucky, because some days I can't even get my words out. I'm having to have help from my husband to actually even get out what I'm thinking or feeling. But the days where I can do or go that little bit extra, I will end up pushing myself, and then I end up paying for it. I mean, a common conception that we will use is boom and bust. Boom being your good day, or not a good day, but where we can function that little bit better than the bad days. And then the bust days are that fallout afterwards. And that's a common occurrence for me, because I tend to really grab the good days by the horns and just let myself ride it out, and then I end up paying for it in the next day to a week afterwards. So, but it's one of those where you don't want it to let you stop you, but on the other hand, you've got to kind of go, well, I do need to rest, I do need to listen, I do just need to stop. But you'll probably understand with being at uni, it's not that easy just to go, right, okay, I can't do this today, I can't not turn up to a lesson or a lecture, I've got to go. And that's when it comes into play of that whole catch-22, where you're in trouble if you don't, you're in trouble if you do. So it's
actually, because I've never heard of that boom and bust saying before. So would you say that's very similar to, I'm assuming you've heard of the spoon theory, would you say it's similar to that, or would you say it's quite a different analogy?
It is limited, to be fair, well, not limited, but I'd say it's pretty on par with the spoon theory, because with the spoon theory, you measure out your activities, or say washing, eating with spoons, and if you have run out of, then you're kind of in the bust stage, whereas having those spoons is your boom. But I think, like myself and probably others, some of us know where our boom limit is, but choose to go over that because we know we've done it before, so we can do it again. But we can't.
It's hard. It's a hard balance trying to know when to stop for yourself and when to continue, so that you can still meet the social expectations.
Definitely, yes.
So I know you've mentioned the seizures, but can you tell us a little bit more about maybe how you first discovered that there was something amiss, and around when that was?
Cool. I know they started late 2005, early 2006. They were first misdiagnosed with just panic attacks, and I was generally put on some quite hard sleep medication, but they did just basically knock me out and put me to sleep. And that's when the hard work really started, because I couldn't quite place what was going on. I couldn't pinpoint when it was starting to when the seizure had finished. For me, it was just blank. It still is now, but I now know some of the signs, like I can tick quite a lot sometimes, which can then turn into a seizure. Stress is a big trigger for me, so if I'm highly stressed, then we know that the seizure is going to be coming. Or afterwards, I know that I have had one. I feel my body feels like concrete. It's really heavy. I struggle to move. I can't place things a few hours before what's happened, and that's when I
Yeah.
know. Whereas at first I had no recollection of anything. It was just blank, missing. Um,
Yeah.
and it turned out I kind of ignored it, just thinking maybe it's just stress, maybe they're right, maybe what the hospital was saying it is panic attacks. I was actually in a full-time job that I'd been headhunted for at the age of 18. I ended up having 3 massive seizures within a space of a week period at work, and I ended up spending most of the month of June in hospital,
Oh gosh.
trying to
Yeah.
figure out what's going on. Still didn't get any answers then, but luckily, fast forward to 2017, I found a really good neurologist, and he knew exactly what was going on, but he just had to have the evidence to prove it. But luckily for
Yeah.
me, my husband recorded the videos of me having seizures and showed them to them. So I got my test done, and the test comes back with exactly what he needed to see, which was normal scans, but yet present seeing a
Yeah.
seizure, which was obviously non-epileptic seizures.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just kind of, if you know the signs or you can tell the feelings, then I think from what I've seen through FND Action and my own group, most people, if they know they're going to get signs of a seizure, they'll stop what they're doing and they'll take themselves somewhere safe.
Yeah.
But then for others like me who don't know that they're coming all the time or can't actually tell exactly when they're going to hear, it's kind of, I'm unemployable as such. There's no medications for FND seizures, no help or anything. It's just
Yeah.
a case you have to get on with it. So this is why I do what I do with FND Action, my blog, my group. It's purely because of I want to help educate others and others in the situation that I'm in, so they're not alone.
Yeah, and you definitely are. I mean, the amount of help from that group that I've seen other people get, and personally I've gotten, it's been a very helpful group to have, and I think you're doing amazing work. Because you've mentioned work, so could you just talk a bit about your experience in having, well, specifically having those like seizures in the workplace, but just in general, how that workplace dealt with it and what that meant for you and how it made you feel?
Well, the job that I was in when I was having the month of bad seizures, I actually ended up losing my job from it. They did sack
Right.
me. I resigned, but they sat me down and said, look, for your safety, we can't have you here because we're not trained in it. We don't know what to do and we don't have anything in place. So
Yeah.
I was grateful that they were actually putting my safety first before them making money, if that makes sense. So I did
Yeah.
lose a job. I have tried since to get a job, but it's literally all the employers come back and say health and safety risks because I'm not medicated. There's nothing they can do, which I
Yeah.
understand. Again, they are putting my health and they are putting the safety of others first, but then it kind of leaves me feeling that I can't provide for my family. And it's because my
Yeah.
husband, my full-time carer, so he can't work either. So it's kind of, we're on the benefits. And there's all that whole
Yeah.
misconception of our people on benefits. They get everything they want. They live a high. We don't. We struggle from payday to payday. We struggle, and it's
Yeah.
not. But I've seen it as well. Actually, what I'm doing, I think, is far more greater than earning money because I'm helping people, even if it's just talking to them. I'm giving them that support. Like the amount of people that have messaged me saying, even like not just from the UK but worldwide, they've gone, I'm in the same boat as you. I can't work. My employers or my ex-employers won't allow me to work because of this, and this due to my FND. Where do I go? I feel stuck. And it's kind of, I know exactly how you feel. It's that feeling of you want to and you know you can, but in black and white and on paper, we can't. So
Yeah.
it's just that block of when will there be things done for us, either by the doctors that can kind of learn or do that kind of stuff, or whether it's down to the
Yeah.
employer kind of making adjustments and learn about it to kind of help fit us in. It's not a magical
Yeah.
not going to be a quick fix, but maybe one day in the future there will be this end of the stigma where of no, you are a health and safety risk. Well, we're not, because some of us do know signs, some of us do know when
Yeah.
days are coming. So maybe one day there'll be that fusion of both medical and professionals all together actually on the same page and working together.
Yeah, and I mean, there are laws that mean that places of work shouldn't and can't discriminate against people with disabilities, but I guess there is a fine line between whether it's a health and safety risk and whether it's just something that they need to make accommodations for.
Yeah.
Because I've had that experience as well. I think that's a very well-known experience among people with chronic illnesses, but specifically FND, because it's so unknown. Nobody knows about it, which is
I know,
a very hard thing.
Knowing it's FND is rarer than Parkinson's, but more common than MS. And it's just kind of, yeah, you can say that, but Parkinson's, MS, and FND have their own sets. They shouldn't really be kind of what's the word, compared as such.
Yeah. Can you talk a bit about the differences between them? Because I know a couple of people who have been misdiagnosed with one or the other, and then years later, after they've accepted the diagnosis, have been told, oh, actually, no, it's something else.
See, now I look at it as in the case of, and it's not just MS or Parkinson's, there's a lot of disorders.
Yeah, there are,
illnesses that, and I really think the reason why they get confused or it's misdiagnosed because there's a lot of symptoms that each of these umbrella disorders have. It's like with MS, you know, that's a common ME rather, not MS, sorry, ME. There's a common thing where you're constantly tired with ME, but then X, Y, and Z disorder all have that as well. So does that mean you will know? Between CFS and FND, fatigue within CFS is serious. It's to the point where some people struggle to do anything because they are physically that too tired. Whereas FND, Parkinson's, and any others that have with the symptom of fatigue, it's the fact of that our body physically can't produce enough energy for what we need to do. And I think that is the problem with a lot of, and it's not just FND or neurological disorders. I think there's a lot with other issues as well. It's the fact of there's overlapping symptoms. And so if you see a bunch of symptoms that are sitting two different disorders, it's kind of, well, let's go for the easiest one, I think, is the one that's more tested and more this and more that. It's easier just to kind of label it with one that is, I think some do see as a one label fits all, and it doesn't.
Let's just hop back to really quickly the misconception of FND. There was an idea by Freud, obviously they didn't know it was called FND back then, that about traumatic experiences, about women being labeled with hysteria, and that's all kind of the ideas behind FND up to, I don't know, like the 1900s. So can you elaborate on the reasons why FND has been said to be a psychological disorder and related to trauma?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked this, actually, to be honest.
Okay.
When I learned properly about the way FND comes about, it's not just trauma related. It can be anything from an accident, like literally a broken bone. FND can be triggered from that. It can be a mental experience, it could be physical, or it could be an emotional. It's not just literally, and this is one thing that really does grate me, is when people say it's all in your head. Well, yeah, it can be, but it doesn't necessarily stem from that, from a mental health disorder. It's kind of, I've had plenty of people come to me and say, well, I've got FND, but they're saying I need to get mental help for it, like see a psychologist. I've gone to see a psychologist and they've referred me saying that I don't need their help. I don't have any mental illnesses. I'm not mentally unwell. I don't have depression, anxiety, but yet I'm now being told it's in my head and I have to get psychological help. But it kind of then goes against those that say have had an accident, a physical accident, say fallen down the stairs and broken, or not, or their arm as such. A simple breakage that's easily fixed with cast 6 to 8 weeks off. They can then as well. You can't necessarily say that's psychological because they've not necessarily had anything traumatic happen to them except a breakage, which some people, I know, especially within children, it can, them breaking parts and having a bright coloured cast is quite exciting, getting your friends to sign it. So they wouldn't necessarily see it as traumatic. But then there is that branching out of, well, the FND could stem from that because of them being of the age where it's scary, it hurts, that kind of thing. But you can't put that example into adults, because they're well aware of what pain's going to be like. They're well aware of breakage of a bone is going to be required, to whether it needs an operation to be put in cast, or whether it's just a simple way of actually putting it back in cast, and that's fine. You can't then say, well, they're then going to be psychologically damaged as such, because it's not possible. They could be quite fit, healthy, no issues whatsoever, and they have then developed FND, purely because of this single accident they've had. One comes from past physical and emotional events that I was subjected to, but ultimately I also think it's from I have a massive fear of needles from obviously where I was poorly as a baby and a young child. Tests and everything else that they want done and stuff. So I think my seizures also come about when I have to have blood tests and other needle work done as well, because I struggle with my fear. But saying that, this year I have vowed to not let FND get in my way. So I am kind of...
That's very good.
Hence I'm on the podcast. I don't do well with talking to people publicly, to be honest. I don't mind putting it onto words, like you see with my Instagram and my blog and stuff. Easier to actually write things down and let people read it than it is to actually physically speak out. So and
I also think, talking about physically speaking out, when you've got a chronic illness and you have something like brain fog, actually doing this is more nerve-wracking, because your brain might just crap out at some point.
This is
and you don't want to have that happen.
This is what I'm waiting for, is almost for you to ask me something, me to be replying, and I can't actually remember what you asked me, and I feel like I'm just babbling on about nothing.
I'm waiting for that as well, to be fair, so we can deal with that together.
Bro.
So the NIH website has made the mistake of saying that FND is a psychological disorder, especially with the DSM-4 criteria for diagnosing it. But with DSM-5, I think they've now corrected it. I think it's generally the same idea, but the wording is slightly different, so that doctors can't just say they can't just, what's the wording? So they can't say, hang on, give me a second. It's happened now, hasn't it? It's not a negative one. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think the terminology of it, they've kind of rearranged the wording of how it's said, instead of people looking at it and going, because I did actually do an Instagram post about this and about the terminology for functional seizures. At the moment, it's non-epileptic attack disorder, or NEED, which is nice, and they've thought about it, but if you really look at it, non-epileptic attack disorder just instantly says, well, it's not epilepsy, so what's happening? Bear with me, I will find the post that I did, but I did actually generally a big post about the name of seizures, the original name pseudo seizures as well. Did actually do quite a big, I get generally not angry, but it winds me up, especially when professionals use pseudo seizures, because they know exactly what pseudo means, and instantly understand what pseudo means will instantly know that it's fake. It's not.
It's the same with terminology like psychosomatic and conversion disorder. It's all of those that have very negative connotations. It's already a disorder that, I know maybe it's just me, I don't know, but I feel that it's not taken seriously, and I gaslight myself into thinking that it's all in my head because of what the doctors say and what the general public says if they generally know about FND, and those words don't help, they hinder.
No, that's exactly it. This is what I thought. Bear me one moment and I'll read it to you, what I put. Let's see if I can find it.
The other thing is, before I forget, I think DSM-5 has also changed to state that it can't just be a ruling out of other conditions. Now there has to also be some testing to positively indicate FND, which wasn't in DSM-4.
No, I mean, when I was originally diagnosed, the tests that they did was a couple of, were they EEGs or ECGs, where they attach the wires to your head?
EEGs.
Several of those. Well, some were in while I was in hospital, and then they realised, obviously, some people, like, they're used to certain surroundings, certain situations, so they feel relaxed and calm. And what I've found when I'm talking to someone about it, I don't think my brain processes that I'm actually speaking about it until afterwards, and that's when I'll start having my effects, like seizures, or my tics will come on.
Yeah.
So I think some people, it's hard to actually get across how severe it affects them, even if they're not able to show the doctor or whoever they're speaking to there and then. So I think it's
Yeah.
when you can actually positively see it, like they did with me, because they sent me home with it for 24 hours. Literally, they picked it up that I was having a seizure, but they picked it up obviously not being epilepsy. So you
Yeah.
can relatively actually see that there's brain activity that shouldn't be happening. It's just not the brain activity that they can almost interpret and understand properly. So they're just kind of almost just going, yeah, it's under the FND. That's it. And it's
Yeah.
really,
Actually, that's interesting. Because there's a lot of the letters written after you have an EEG state something like no abnormal brain activity. So, because I didn't actually know that about, there's still some activity that shouldn't be there. So when they state there's no abnormal brain activity, are they completely ignoring, maybe that's not the right word, but ignoring the other activity that shouldn't be there, but they don't know what that is? Or is that what it is?
I think it's more the case of they know that there's something there, but because there's nothing, say, in black and white already written for them, like, do you know,
Yeah.
like pseudo seizures, it was already there. It's just a case of over the time it's been changed, interpreted better, understood a bit better, and so it's almost progressed, evolved. But I think the issue that it is the wrong term was given at the start. And I think that's the whole issue with FNDs, because it's been labelled with or commented with things that shouldn't have been labelled or commented. It's almost given it a black X and gone, and it's left everyone else like me and you with it, like going, well, where do we go? Being given a leaflet, a website, or someone's name or book to read isn't good enough. They kind of wouldn't give it to someone who is terminally ill, saying, look, there's a book, there's thing, go read up on it. They'd offer them help. So it's kind of why we left as well, just to kind of go, okay, we need to find help ourselves now.
It's crazy how from Freud and even before that, those labels are still on us to this day. It's 2023, like we shouldn't be thinking about those labels, and they're quite negative.
This is it, because there's still the label of hysteria coming back from back in the day when it was, that's where those names pseudo have all come for. Hysteria was given to the women that were crazy, but that clearly isn't FD. That clearly isn't what we're all suffering with today. That was clearly back then. But like, and I won't lie, there I have seen cases across my socials where people have gone, well, my doctor doesn't know what it is, so they've just given me an FND diagnosis. And that's when it gets hard, because they shouldn't just be able to just put that diagnosis on someone without doing the right test, or without doing the test that would conclude that it could be FND, not something more serious. And I think that's where the also lies, is them not doing enough to rule out, say, other diagnoses first.
And it's also not only if you're diagnosed with FND itself, just having a negative thing around it, but if you're diagnosed with FND and it's actually not FND, and it's something that can be treated and fixed. Like, my friend was diagnosed with FND and it's actually arthritis. There are medications that can at least help deal with the symptoms.
This is my now. I haven't seen a neurologist since 2017 when I was diagnosed. I've seen a specialist for my seizures, but like they say, they only deal with specifically the seizures. So I've been a neurologist in 6 years. I'm still waiting to see one. I've asked to be referred. I'm still waiting to be seen. But I've now got other issues presenting, other symptoms that aren't FND, that I've had numerous people from all around the world commenting, saying, that looks like this and that looks like that. And what they're referring to, I know there is treatment out there for. But
Yeah.
for the case of, well, if I'm diagnosed later than what I should have been, is it going to cause any complications, or are there things that I don't know that I should know about this disorder or this health
Yeah.
issue I have now? And that's
Yeah.
what, have I been thinking that everything is based on my FND when it really isn't? It is another underlying cause. And I think that's
Yeah.
what they do more of, instead of just going, right, it is FND, that's it. We think it's this because of this, and this of what you've said. It should be, actually, we're going to do test for this, test for this, test for this, test for this. We don't think it is, but we want to rule it out so we know that it isn't that. And I think that's where the starting point should be, maybe, is looking at what it's not instead of what and they think it is.
Yeah. So you said you actually go see a specialist for the seizures, but on that topic, which label do you prefer for talking about the seizures? Is it functional? Is it non-epileptic? It's obviously not pseudo seizures, but I'll throw that in the mix just in case.
Yeah. No, it is functional seizures I prefer.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the same as me.
Yeah, it's kind of, it doesn't just sound like I'm ill without a reason, at least when I say functional seizures, because, as you know, it's not just a full body seizure. You can have head jerks, which can turn into a seizure. Your legs can go, your arms, different body parts can seize. It's not just, as everyone thinks, our whole body goes into a seizure, your eyes roll in the back of the head, you foam at the mouth and bite your tongue and wet yourself. No, that's not a typical seizure for everyone. So
Right. So next set of questions, we'll be focusing on doctors and institutions. So when the symptoms first started, how helpful were the healthcare professionals in, I'm assuming the NHS, but privately, if you went privately?
No, it was with the NHS. So I wish I could, but can't afford private. So to be honest, it took 11 years from when my symptoms first started to get a diagnosis, to 2017. I mean, the doctors that were involved, I've seen doctors from 3 different counties at 3 different hospitals and doctor surgeries to all try and help.
Yeah.
The final one came down from London, where I went to the hospital, or neurosurgery hospital. I think it was next to Great Ormond Street, and they run lots. And this was all down for my seizures as well, and they couldn't find anything bar they thought it was migraines, which I do have, but it's genetic for me, so it's just kind of, I was used. That was back in 2014, and then I moved back up with my parents because I was struggling too much, and went referred up to Birmingham, and that's when I got my diagnosis, because he'd seen that I'd struggled for so long. I'd lived with it for so long without any answers, and it was just a case of determined to get the answers and find out what was going on. The specialist up in Birmingham was brilliant. Obviously there's only so much they can do to help, and then lockdown hit as well, so I was a bit stuck. Ended up moving away from Birmingham, down to Sussex, and I'm just waiting now just to see the neurologist and other teams again. So as I won't lie, my mental health played up quite bad last year, so I kind of end up putting all my appointments to one side and not really doing much, and just kind of really did give up, to be fair, last year, thanks to my FND and everything else with it. But then I realised that it wasn't the end, it was just the beginning, and literally just I've come back with more fire in me.
I think those pushing the appointments back though, there's been multiple appointments of mine that I try to go with my parents' appointments, because the doctors don't listen to me on my own, maybe because I'm still, quite young, a teenager, so they don't want to listen to me. But where I've said to my parents, I'm not going because I know what they're going to say, and they're not going to change. And my parents have been the ones to say, let's go and hear what they say. And I go to those appointments, and sometimes they're positive and sometimes they're still negative. And I've had doctors tell me some quite hurtful things. And I think that's an issue that needs to be sorted, especially with FND and the stereotype around it.
I completely agree. I won't lie, I'm 35, and I've asked my mum to come to my next hospital appointment, because I even turned around and said to her, because she actually has arthritis and she deals my appointments with rheumatology. so not for FND, but I know how they work. And my mum is quite used to going to rheumatology and the questions and everything that comes around it. So I said to her, can you come with me? Because I know if what I say to them, they'll either take it two ways. They'll listen to me and actually do what I ask them or what they feel is best to look at what I'm saying, or they'll just be negative and either like, snidey snarks as much as you don't need that, you're too young, or you're not in the category for it. It's not the case. There are several people that shouldn't fall into a category of certain something, but they do. And it's unfortunately it's the way of life. Things don't always go the way that they do. And I think this is where the doctors kind of need to come into it as well. If a patient comes to them and says, well, this and this isn't right, oh, I'm feeling like this, or this doesn't fit in with these symptoms, then they should really go with what the patient's saying and go, actually, okay, yeah. And if they come back without any answers, or not the answers that they thought they would and better, then that's good. But at least they can say, well, I actually did this much for the patient. I went a little bit beyond. I listened to what they said, not with what I think I know from what I've been taught. I've actually gone with what the patient's saying to me. And I think sometimes that judgment call needs to be made than what textbooks say as such.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. So have you had any experience with doctors and the criteria with the DSM-5 guidelines and then saying, oh no, you don't have FND, or oh no, it's definitely FND, even to the symptoms that you don't think personally are FND?
To be honest, with my symptoms, I know it was in 2017, but they generally actually listened and they took on board what they were actually presented with, not just with what their guidelines was telling them to go with. They actually, unless they witness them themselves, they sometimes don't want to make a judgment call. But the neurologist, because my husband had actually filmed it properly, and he'd actually filmed it, one of them when I actually had the wires on my head as well. So it wasn't them having their wires pick it up. They could visually see my seizure too. And I think when they take it on board to actually taking on board, sorry, my brain's just gone.
Fine.
When they take on board what they're actually seeing against with what they're being told to do in textbook style, it's nice because they know that they are generally making their own call when they can physically see, even though it's not, I'm not having a seizure there then in front of them, they're still taking into account what my husband's shown them. So the evidence, it's not just, well, I'm not going to because I haven't personally. It's okay, we've got evidence, we've got it all, we can make an informed kind of decision. And I think that's what needs to be done. But I know it's not always the case, and this is one thing that I've put on my social recently, that I don't always film. You won't always see my seizures or tics because for me trying to film them myself, my anxiety plays up, so I can't. And to be honest, you've got friends and family around you that can see you're having a seizure. I doubt very much, I can bet my life that a single one of them wouldn't pull their phones out and start filming me. They'd be like, let's help her. Let's make sure she's okay. So it's kind of also in that catch-22 as well, that if you can't film it, it's hard to then prove it as well or show people. So I think in that instance, the medical professionals need to take into account that there isn't anyone there to help them. So if they almost they're struggling, then maybe a referral to adult social services to get a carer in, or at least someone that could be there, that one day would visually catch seeing it, what people are saying. I think that's another thing. It's not fair that there are some people struggling because they don't have the support around them to help them.
Yeah.
They are generally just falling through the fishing net and not getting help. And that is there when the support groups do come into play. Those that say, well, we are suspected diagnosis of FND, but haven't got one yet due to tests and everything else going through. At least then they can get a bit of reassurance from talking to people that have been through the same, that then have got the diagnosis, but they face those battles as well. It's always helping others. That's what needs to be done, is help others a bit more. Yeah,
and those support groups teach you to advocate for yourself, which I think is a major part, especially with a diagnosis like FND.
Yeah.
You mentioned just then about like your friends and family, like respecting your privacy when you're having a seizure. But I think the hard thing is is when you need a diagnosis, so you have to have people video, because I know I've been in school, like sixth form, and I'd be having a seizure, and because the doctors, I needed evidence of it, I'd have to ask my friends to video and help me, because not all the teachers knew how to handle it, but my friends did. And I'm lucky I had that support system, but not everybody who goes through this has that support system. And it's also hard to have that, to feel that you need the support from these people, like you can't be completely independent. And I think that's the other thing that people with FND struggle with a lot of the time.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, if it wasn't for my husband, then I probably wouldn't have had anything filmed. But it's kind of the case of, I've had to say to him, like, you need to film me. If I have a seizure, film me.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I'll only film you if I know you're safe. Like, say if I'm in bed and I'm having one, he's happy to film me then, because he knows that I am physically okay, as in he can see me, he's there, I'm laying down, I'm safe. Whereas if I say to him when we're out and about, film me, he'll be like, no, because if you go down, I can't catch you, I can't grab you, I can't do anything because I'm stood there with my phone. And he's like, that's not the way it works. So it's really, really hard, especially like you said, with those that when you can't film it, it's awkward more than anything, because you know what's going on. You just can't, because you're not actually either. You can't physically describe what's going on, and all you can say is, well, yeah, I've had a seizure because this is it there, or so and so's told me I've had one. So
are you aware when you are you like not conscious, but are you aware you're having a seizure at the time, but then forget details of it later, or do you in a sense black out in that post pre-seizure bit?
It's a case of bit of both, to be honest. When I have an absent seizure, I don't fully go with it. It's just what would look like to others. I'm zoning out, I'm just staring. I can hear muffles, but I physically can't. Everything's just blurred for me. It's I'm like stuck in a glue bubble, if that makes sense, where you can hear stuff, but you can't see anything. But it's awkward. Whereas with my tonic-clonic, I'm fully gone. I don't even know. I mean, the amount of injuries that I've had from seizures and stuff. I mean, 2020, start of June, I ended up fracturing my eye socket from head to sofa. Literally, my eye was just like that for 3 to 4 weeks. It was just black. So yeah, it is awkward, but if you can record it, then do it. But obviously, don't hurt yourself or get anyone else to make. And I think sometimes this is where I think also professionals push people and say, well, you need that video evidence, you need to ask people. It's not that simple. There's some people that won't even feel comfortable even being in the same room, that will, if you see a seizure in the middle of the street, will continue to just walk past you. And it's not maybe because they don't know what to do. It's maybe because their anxiety, they're scared that they're going to do something wrong. So I think that's where a part of raising awareness with both medical professionals and the schools as well needs to come about, because I think if we're aware of what we go through in terms of when we come out of a seizure, what we need, I think there'll be a bit more understanding and a bit more help, and people will be able to deal with it a hell of a lot better as well.
Actually, you did just mention schools again. So did you ever have any of your symptoms whilst you were in school, or was it all post 18?
I did have a few symptoms in school, but I generally can't remember. I remember one, but this is only from what I've been told. The case of, I had a really bad absence seizure in the middle of a class, and I apparently freaked everyone out because I couldn't snap out of it. I think where everyone had then come out of the room to say the end of the lesson or whatever had happened, I generally think it might have been the whole trigger of too much noise in a confined space. It was just too much. And I think it just sent me into an absent seizure. And I just remember coming out of it thinking, it's really quiet in here. Why is it silent? And that's all I can remember of that. And it's all from what my friend had told me from when we were at school. But I know I wasn't very well during school and my school life. So, but it's kind of, I don't know, it's, for me now, with my own children in school, I will always educate and tell the staff what I have, with FND. And it's actually quite refreshing because most of the teachers actually want to learn more.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Where I am, there are quite a few students under the age of 16 with FND. And I know even within the schools as well. So I'm actually, at the moment, I've managed to get it in one set of academies. I'm trying to make sure that they roll it out through the whole of the academies, but so far they are going to be learning about functional seizures instead of just
Oh,
epileptic.
wow.
I'm hoping to
Yeah.
get the rest of the academies ASAP as well. So yeah.
Yeah. That's
My audio cut out here, unfortunately. However, we were discussing that some people have less than positive experiences with institutions such as schools, not believing people with FND. And I asked Ray what reactions does she usually get from people when she tells them she has FND?
It kind of varies. You'll get the people that will try and understand but don't, but they'll do whatever they can to try and understand it more. Then you get some people that are just like, well, if it doesn't affect me, then I don't need to learn about it. And then you get those literally dive headfirst into understanding it properly so they can support you or anyone else with it any way which way possible. It all just depends, but then it's what they've been told, whether it's through social media, the news, which however they read their information, there's someone out there that doesn't feed the right information. So there's always going to be misconception or misdiagnose or misinformation being put out there for some people. It all just depends on who you kind of project to, that will listen, that will then come back and interact with you to kind of elaborate more on it.
Again, my audio cut out here. However, what I was asking Ray was what she thinks needs to be done by society to make it more accessible for people with hidden disabilities, more specifically FND.
First and foremost, they need to read up on FND, whether it's through FND Action's website, John Stone. There's so many neurologists out there on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook that will post and publish about FND. I mean, John Stone's the best one for it on Twitter. He will tweet about FND. So if you want to read up on it, whether you're a professional, medical, school, anyone in whatever profession, builder, if you want to learn about FND, go and do your own research. But I say, don't just stick to the websites, the professionals. Speak to those that have FND, because they will generally tell you how it is. They won't beat around the bush. They'll be as blunt as a blunt needle. They will tell you excuse my language, they will tell you how crap it is. They won't sugarcoat it. But then they'll also tell you how good other things can be as well. Well, just because we have mobility issues, for me, it's a kind of those catch-22. Yeah, I'm disabled now. Yeah, I can't work. Yeah, I'm limited to what I can do. But for me personally, and I'm in a community of thousands around the world where they understand me. I can speak to them without like saying, yeah, everything's fine, when it's not. I can say to them, I'm in massive amounts of pain and I don't know how to deal with it. It's kind of, they're like, I understand, I know how that feels. Have you tried this or have you tried that? It's just a case of we all work together to help build each other back up again. And I think if it wasn't for me, as bad as it sounds, becoming disabled, I wouldn't have met all those people that I've met now that have now helped me understand that better. Like you, it's kind of, you're allowing me to share my story, to hear other people, but in turn, you're helping me by my confidence as well, by allowing me to come on. It's just little things. I don't think some people, when you're able-bodied, to them going disabled or having disabilities that affect, or disorders that affect your mobility and your capability to do things for yourself, you kind of do turn to say more things that will draw you, saying inside, like my art, for instance. The days that I know I can't go out and can't see friends or family, I will literally just latch on to my art and my drawing and my painting. That's my freedom. So I think the way that, if people want to help us, is go and speak to people, go and find out about it for yourself, interpret it yourself. Don't allow what other people say, have written in the past or called it in the past, turn you off it or not make you want to learn. I wholeheartedly suggest going and speaking to people that have it themselves, and then you'll understand and then they should be able to like make the adequate adjustments. Like, say, some of us that have mobility issues, on some days we can walk and we can walk fine. Other days we need crutches or walking sticks, or it's rollator or wheelchairs. Just for instance, a stairs accessible, say, lecture hall for you, if you one day struggled with your mobility, if you couldn't get up those stairs, having a foldable, removable ramp that could be picked up and just put down for those that needed it, that would still make it accessible for you. You wouldn't have to miss out on your lecture because you couldn't get into the place that it was being held. And it's just subtle changes like that, just thinking about, well, it doesn't need to be permanent, but something that can be put there just in case.
My audio cut out here. So what I was asking Ray was whether she could talk to us a bit about what she does with her work with the charity F&D Action.
At the moment, the head office is located in Maidstone, so I can't actually travel to and from. But I have meetings with the team every few weeks or every month. Basically, all I do is help support people with FND, carers, people that are wanting to learn. The medical professionals will signpost them to where they can actually read proper information, all within the Facebook support groups as well. But every Tuesday I run a topic Tuesday where I'll create something maybe about what's your favourite film. Over Christmas I did what's that one Christmas movie that you cannot watch or that you have to watch over. So it's just, for me, I get all the members to kind of chat and kind of share their experiences and stuff. There's a few of us at the moment on the team, and we all have our individual things that we do. So I'm actually working on the Instagram page for FND Action at the moment, trying to get all the right information up. So I'm researching at the moment, and I'm looking so I can see what's the best post to get put out. But it's all about fundraising and just getting the knowledge out. Like the latest campaign that FND Action have at the moment is Inform the Doctor, where a 4-page leaflet is, or 4-page paper has been created that can be handed to any medical professional so they understand what functional neurological disorder is and how they can help too. But yeah, it's just little things like that, making changes for everyone with FND. It's brilliant. I absolutely love it. So yeah.
I'm assuming you know about the trying to write letters to the MPs to make them more aware that stuff can be done at like level about FND. Do you think you can explain a bit that campaign is trying to do and why it's useful?
I think that campaigns with FND Hope, it's another charity, but I believe what they're trying to do is literally just make all the MPs aware of what is going on within their constituencies. Because let's be honest, I won't divulge, but I generally believe the NHS is suffering so much because the MPs and the government don't understand what is really going on, what we're facing. So I genuinely believe it's a way and a start to make all the people higher up that can change things, make them see that a change needs to be made.
Okay. I think the final sort of question is, have you got any advice for anyone who's newly diagnosed or might think they have ADHD? So your disability in general, have you got any advice?
If you think you have it and you're waiting for a diagnosis, I say write everything down, everything, time, date it, and where you were. If you can then kind of link your triggers, or if you can see a pattern of triggers, mention it as well. All these little tiny things that you think are irrelevant are massive and will mean a lot, and it will help. If you can get videos, record them, or pictures, or anything that you can present to help them get you a diagnosis, do. And then once they've diagnosed you, do not just let them fob you off with this or that. If they do, I personally recommend take to the internet and find groups, whether it's in real time in a place, or whether it's via Zoom or social media. Go and source the help, go and source support groups. Don't sit alone and deal with it by yourself. There's loads of us that will be willing to help you and be there for you.
Thank you very much for coming on the Hidden Disabilities podcast. It's been a pleasure talking to you and raising awareness for functional neurological disorders. So much.
No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.